Welcome to this wonderful webinar we have planned for you today. I haven't done a webinar in a while, so I'm looking forward to this. I think it's classified as a webinar. It's live. We're sharing with you that are here. We will be recording. So for others that could not make today, we'll be able to share this with you in maybe a video or maybe even a transcript type of a format. The theme today is AI readiness. That's the primary theme for today. And we have two experts that I personally know that are awesome people doing awesome things. Oscar Marin is with EY, and he's the go-to guy there for data and AI. And Alon Bochman, who's the founder of RagMetrics. They're doing some really cool things to ensure quality and viability as far as those of you who are doing LLM development. I'll start out by saying I had a meeting about a year ago where a CEO asked me what he needs to do to ensure that his company is future ready. And my response quite simply was, in order to be future ready, you need to be AI ready. However, in order to be AI ready, you need to be data ready. Most of you are aware of this, but I just wanted to put that in perspective as to that's what we're going to hone in on today. I took a quick look at those of you in attendance. Some of you already well into your journey. Others are still taking a look, dipping your toe in the pool and wondering what the next step is, or maybe even the first step. From a format standpoint, once we shift from my opening monologue here and intro, I'm going to spend a little bit of time with Oscar, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time with Alon, and then we're going to allow for some Q&A on the back end. If you have a question during, jump in. I'd like this to be as conversational as possible. That's the benefit of this format. So welcome. And my promise to you is to help make this as informative and helpful as possible. With that, thank you, Ben Yerkson, for helping to produce this and make it all possible. Ben, I'm going to ask if you can introduce or bring Oscar into frame, and we'll get going. Gee, that was pretty much pain-free. Oscar, thank you so much. Oscar Marin, thank you, my friend. We know each other for at least 15 years. You've always been the go-to guy for what was important at the time. When I first met you, it was robotic process automation. Then it was more intelligent automation. And here we are in this world of AI and data readiness. And I remember speaking to you about a year or so ago, and I asked you what's keeping you busy. And you very quickly said just a lot of data-related projects. And I'd like to hear more about that. Oscar, would you mind maybe start out with a super quick intro? And then from there, I'd love to get your thoughts on why are you up to your eyebrows right now helping companies with data readiness and related efforts?
Of course. No, thank you, Frank, for the invite to speak with your audience. And a little bit of a background. So Oscar Marin, I've been working in the technology space since 2003, 2004, and always close to emerging technologies, trying to solve difficult problems for clients, and just make sure that the organizations that I'm involved with, they have access to the latest and greatest from a technology perspective, and always keeping in mind how we can do that in a way that is profitable for them, with a business first mindset, and avoiding the concept of technical debt as much as possible. And if you keep that in mind, right, data is a never ending problem. And Frank, I'm sure you noticed, right, that we've seen all kinds of different emerging trends and how technology is evolving, and what everybody's talking about, but data is always in the front of all of the conversations, right? I like to tell everybody that this is a never-ending challenge. We produce a lot more data than we can actually consume, and that trend is never going to slow down. And it's important for everybody trying to your point, Frank, that they're trying to future-proof their business, to have a strategy around data. And it can be overwhelming. I was having some discussions with colleagues and clients, and they were like showing some level of frustration around the concept of data governance and how sometimes they're just trying to address that problem and say like, hey, I'm going to have a data governance instruction, I'm going to look after stewardship and quality, but they're coming to realize that it is close to impossible, right? So it's important to acknowledge it's not a problem that go away. You're never going to feel like you're in control of your data, but it's important to have a framework for you to, address the challenge of dealing with, this vast amount of data. And we're seeing a lot of things in the technology, how it's evolving, that is going to help us address that problem. But Fran, that's where I'm spending a lot of time, just helping organizations try to address those challenges and then set the foundation so they can innovate quickly with artificial intelligence. And then the other piece, and I know you're going to discuss this at length with your other guests, about how do you gain confidence, right? Like once you have the data foundation, once you have the AI ML working, how do you can build trust on that data and make sure that you feel confidence on, hey, this is what the technology is giving me. How can I trust what the technology is providing for me? But the very exciting times, Frank, right? And yeah, glad to be here with your audience.
No, thank you, my friend. And hopefully my Wi-Fi is holding up. I think it's a little weird, but let me know if I get squiggly here. So I've been in two types of conversations, and curious to your reaction to this. One category is companies struggling because of the quality of their data, right? Dirty data, if you will. And then the other grouping, I would say, is the fact that data is kind of everywhere, right? Just this dispersion of data. There's no data lake, right? There's a lot of data ponds, maybe a few puddles here and there, and they're not even sure where some of this is. Does that reflect kind of your world today, or is there a third category as well?
No. That I think that's a good characterization of where we are today. Very early on the days of generative AI, I was having discussions with clients, and I remember one CIO making a point about, now that we have Gen AI and I can process this amount of data and I can have intelligent capabilities, do I really need to, worry about data quality, right? And it was like a very interesting question, because I was tempted to say, like, you know what, like, you have a really good point. Maybe you don't have to worry about your data strategy, your data quality. AI is going to be able to just make decisions for you around, oh, I'm analyzing data and I need to pick what cost center to use on my report. AI is going to be able to make the decision for you. In reality, is that technology might be able to provide the accuracy that you need and make some of those predictions. However, is the time to value, right? Like, how quickly are you actually going to deploy the technology and get the meaningful results that you need? For you to actually do that, you need to have a strategy around, how can I trust my data? What the, where to go when I need to make, when I need to provide an input to my AI models. So, Frank, I think that having a sense of what my strategy is going to be around how I collect my data, and how I source the information, how can I trust it, it's going to be critical for companies to move forward. I kind of changed my view from that perspective. Early on, I was like, hey, I can do that, right? Like, so I don't need anybody telling me what my gold standard for data is going to be, because the technology should be able to make that determination for me. But the more I'm using the technology, the more I'm coming to realize that it's important to have a handle on where your data is coming from and what can I trust. And we've been hearing this for years and years and years, right? Like, even from the early big data days, garbage in, garbage out, right? Like, so it's important to understand very well how to, keep tabs of the quality of the data. And then
Okay.
the other piece that is important from a artificial intelligence perspective is, for the longest time, we were somewhat constrained around the data that we can use on organizations to produce value. And for the most part, we were, dealing with structured data, information that I have on a table in a database someplace. Now that we have artificial intelligence capabilities and large language models, embeddings, vector databases, we have access. And on top of that, right, like we have vision models. So I can reach out into a PDF and I can look into graphics and schematics, and the technology has the ability to make sense of that. So the access that we have to information is even greater, right? And we can feed that into models, and we can have a reliable way to transform highly unstructured data into structured data that we can fit into algorithms, and it's going to generate value for us. And in one area around the whole data governance space that I believe is really going to transform how organizations are going to produce value is this concept of semantic models, right? Which is the ability to have a description of my data that can be fed into AI models. So the models have the ability to understand how that data should be consumed and used, and is going to greatly increase and improve the outcomes of my information. There has been some exciting announcement from different technology players on the data space. For example, on the Databricks Summit last week and the week prior to that in the Snowflake Summit, when they are starting to improve and release on their semantic capabilities. And I think that's just going to open up a new world of possibilities, because in the end, organizations and enterprises, they want to trust the information that they're reaching out, and they want to improve the quality of the AI responses. And the best way to actually achieve that is going to be with this concept of semantic models, right? And there is also the model context protocol and all kinds of different capabilities. Me personally, I think that the future around AI is going to be companies that have the ability to procure the data, that they can trust the data. And for you to get there, you're going to need to have the semantic layer in place, which is basically a way to teach the AI what to trust and how to process data. Hopefully that makes sense, Frank.
No, super. I'm jotting some things down, a lot of interesting subtopics. And I know we have limited time here today, but you've given me some ideas on why I should invite you back in the future, Oscar, with all the free time that you don't have, my friend. But again, I appreciate you being here. I want to ask you a question that'll probably get me in trouble with a couple of my colleagues, but I have this belief that most of the discussions about data now, data readiness, are driven by the IT department, by the technologists within the company. And that sort of makes sense for a moment. But at the end of the day, shouldn't the business people be involved? What is your sense of who should be around that table, and who should drive it versus who should support it? Do you have an opinion there that won't get you in trouble?
Oh yeah, no. That's Frank. I cannot tell you how many discussions I have had lately around ownership and the involvement of business in the concept, in the life cycle of data. So, I mean, it's your own topic here, and I have a view, right? Like what is happening lately with technology is we're democratizing the access to raw data, right? In the past, it was kind of difficult to get access to a database or get access to CSV files or PDFs and processing large amounts of data. Now with technologies that are being deployed, some of the legacy analytics platforms make that capability easier, but with artificial intelligence, it's even easier to get access to data. Frank, definitely needs to be a joint effort. There is going to be parts of the life cycle of the governance of data that needs to be on the IT side, particularly subjects like your master data management, everything that is around risk and compliance. I think IT still need to have a leading role from that perspective. And then the administration of the cloud and data platforms, making sure that you have access to the latest and greatest, that they can scale, that you don't have technical debt. But then there is going to be other areas where I think like the business either needs to lead, or the business needs to have a strong voice on how that is happening. One is going to be, for example, what the strategy is going to be for my data, and also the stewardship of that data. Because in the end, data needs to be uh, uh, an input. It needs to be source that is driving the company overall strategy. And for that to happen, you need to have like a top-down capability. What are like the KPIs, the OKRs that I'm going to be driving this quarter, this year, or for the future, and how data is going to fuel my growth, how data is going to fuel my strategy. And I think that's a function of the business, right? And the same with the governance of that data. So we're seeing more business leaders taking a more proactive role in everything related to data governance and data management.
No, super. Thank you, Oscar. So, when you're typically dealing day to day with your clients, who are you dealing with? I mean, maybe it differs. Who are you? No, I want to change my question. That's not a good question. Here's my question: who should be the point person? And by the way, as I'm asking this question, for those of you who are here, I want to let you know I expected about 20 people on this, and we have almost 50. That's wonderful. So great topic, and certainly great attraction to the two awesome guests we have here today. And to keep in mind, again, we're on a discussion. Don't need to be super polite. Wait till the end. I'm an Italian guy from New York, so the way we communicate is we're very interrupt driven. So don't be shy. If you have a question, type it in there. While we have my colleagues on the line, we want to get your questions answered. I hope I'll be able to see them here. If not, Ben will do something to make sure I do. So my question to you, back to you and I, Oscar, is who should be the lead person? There are people on this call that maybe they're thinking they should be, or they want to know who they should anoint in their organization. Who do you think is the ideal person to kind of drive and lead the charge, if you will?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Frank. And I'll give you kind of like the annoying consultant answer to some of these questions, right? I believe it depends on the culture of the organization, right? And what I'm noticing with anything related to artificial intelligence or emerging technologies is that there is always like a lot of excitement and heroics that wants to happen in the organization, and somebody gets familiar with the technology and say like, oh, I want to do this for my organization and I want to lead it, right? And I think that's very important. Early adoption typically is a good quality in my opinion. And what we're seeing is, depending upon the organization, sometimes you see like business leaders actually taking on the adoption and implementation of new technologies and new capabilities, right? And even with IT orgs as well. Like I was saying in the previous question, I think that there is going to be certain areas where IT definitely needs to take the lead, especially everything related to risk management and compliance of the information. Whatever you're doing, you want to make sure that it's secured and that you have a strategy around traceability of your data, and make sure that you're not exposing your company to unnecessary risk. But at the same rate, the business have a closer look as to what is going to be important for the growth of the company. And I feel that's where business leaders have the ability to actually take a more proactive role in driving the innovation strategy. Evidently, right? Like we see this in a lot of places. Sometimes the relationship between business leadership and IT leadership is not the best, right? Like there is always some healthy tension between both groups. Fully understand that, and I've seen that in pretty much every organization. But going back to one of the critical success factors that I see in organizations that embrace change and have the ability to actually drive a meaningful change in their organizations and leverage digital technologies is when you have a good relationship between both parties, right? In the end, we're all humans. We have different ambitions. We have different personalities. But it's important to have a framework that is going to allow you to innovate quickly with the help of the business and IT. So, Frank, very long story short, I say a lot of words. I think it depends, and it's important to have a strategy around how I can leverage the best of IT, and I can also leverage the best of my business leaders. That then in the end, they're the ones that probably understand that their clients better, right? Like the end users better, and they might have a perspective that sometimes it might, not be great from a technical implementation perspective, but being able to communicate and collaborate with those groups are going to drive value for the organizations, right? In the end, it's important to innovate quickly. I was in the keynote at the Snowflake conference when Sam Altman was being interviewed, and they were asking like, "Hey, how can you deal with AI quicker, right, and drive value?" His answer is like, "Just do it," right? So it's important to iterate fast. One of my favorite concepts around agile and project management is the concept of fail fast, right? It's important to go there, start working on your problem, and being able to determine, hey, when am I, at what point is that working for me and I need to try something else, and then rather than try to make something work that is not going to work, right? Like so having the ability to see that, fail fast, and then pivot. And we all hear this, right? Like there is no such thing as a failure, right? If I'm failing, I'm learning, right? If I'm learning, I'm going to be better on my next iteration.
No, thank you so much. Thank you. So let's allow me to segue to the next portion of our discussion. Ben, a slight modification I'd like to do is can we keep Oscar on, Ben, and add Alan? So we could all gang up on Alan, Oscar and I? Let's see. Oh, look at that. By the magic of technology. Alan, thank you so much. And I appreciate you being here. Hopefully you heard some of the discussion so you have a sense of some context. And I know you live in this world. If we could start, so you're the founder of RagMetrics. Uh, uh, so could you give us a 1 minute on what RagMetrics does, and then can you tell the story as to why you decided to tackle this problem? Because I know it came from you as a practitioner, and I think that would be good context.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Fred. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. I'm going to take those in reverse order if that's okay with you, Frank.
Sure, good idea.
Yeah. Before RagMetrics, I was working as head of AI for a company called FactSet. The ticker is FDS. It's a Fortune 500 company, and they sell market data, capital markets data. They compete with Bloomberg. And I had a fairly large team, and we had 100 plus AI use cases. It was very, very difficult to test things. As an engineer, that's deeply troubling to me. Kind of like building a bridge, but I can't run a truck over it. I just have to see what happens when people start walking over the bridge. So the reason for that was not that I had a bad team. It was just that the tools that you use to test software don't work for GenAI, because when you're testing software, if you test it once, it works the same each time. So either the test passes all the time or it fails all the time. And also the test is most tests tend to be binary. You either flip the switch or you don't flip the switch. That's software. And we have very good tools for measuring software quality. But in GenAI, you have text in, maybe audio in, video in, hieroglyphics, all sorts of things, and text out, and audio out, video out. And it's much harder to see if those are good or bad. It requires some judgment. It requires good, clean data, which we can talk about. And the tools just fail. And so I left FactSet to launch RagMetrics, and that's what we do. We help teams that are building with AI to raise quality, to ship faster with fewer hallucinations, to automate their testing loop.
No, wonderful. Thank you. And how's the market been? How receptive have they been? Are people getting it? Are you finding people that have similar issues that you've had? What's been your experience to date?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's definitely a new message for a lot of teams, Frank. I think a lot of teams that I talk to that are building with AI, when we get to talk to them, they're really anxious, as you might be if you were responsible for a bridge that you cannot test, right? You just have to wait, and hopefully it doesn't collapse when people walk over it. It's nerve wracking. And so a lot of AI developers that we talk to, their nerves are racked. They don't really know what's going to happen. There's a lot of finger crossing. There's a lot of sleeping pills and that sort of thing. And we have a conversation. It's often a bit like therapy, and we're like, well, what do you think you're really nervous about? Like, what's making you concerned? And at the bottom of it is really that the fact that they have no clue what users are going to type in. It's not going to be the same as what they typed in. If it works once, it may not work again, even if you type in the same thing, because there's some randomness, and it's just very different from what they're used to. So once we get to the core of that anxiety, the conversation is great. Like, we get to, like, okay, how do we get you comfortable again? How do we get you confident again? And how do we blow away the expectations of your customer? And once we get there, it's all downhill.
No, yeah, it makes sense. I'm curious. If I have, as I think both of you gentlemen have, I've been on the front end of a few waves, and to me, there tends to be two types of people that begin to lean in. One group, and this I have found has been the smaller group. The first group, they kind of sees it, they have vision, and they're more proactive, and they will embrace what you're saying. They get it, and they want to be proactive. The second category is they end up, something blows up, or they trip up, or they get in trouble, or they get beat up by their boss or a client or something, and then they see religion. Are those the two categories you're seeing, or is there a third, or how would you describe the world as you see it?
Yeah, 100%, Frank. If we take your categories and we put them, like, imagine like a little S curve, right? So when you're at the bottom of the S curve, you're talking to the people that are pulling you in. And when you're at the top of that S curve, you're dealing with the dregs that are left because everybody's dragging them along. Like, it's the last man standing that wants to either not test or test manually. So I think that we're very much in the early part of that curve, where it is somehow acceptable to ship AI that's not tested. That's because a lot of consumers of AI are putting up with it. A lot of enterprises are putting up with it, and but that S is gonna flip, and so most of the people that we're talking to are definitely in that first group.
Okay, super. So I jotted a few things here, and I don't want to manage the conversation too much, allow for free form. But I mean, one of the first things I really wanted to ask is just, what do you see as most common blind spots, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what trips people up. So how would you describe those common blind spots, Alon?
Yeah, I think that the first it depends on who we're talking to, right? So if we're talking to the builders, um, then often the blind spot is really sort of focusing on the lore or the craft, the passed down axioms. So maybe you read a friend of yours said that Model X is better than Model Y, and so you pick Model X and you feel good about that. Maybe a friend of yours said that one vector database is better than another, or if you just if you just turn the temperature on the generation up to zero point 0.6, it's gonna do better for you, or throw some salt over your shoulder. It gets to be a lot of voodoo, and the blind spot is that people think that there are these Jedis that kind of know everything, and if you just get access to them, they can tell you just the right settings to unlock good performance. When the reality is that it's in the data. Like you have to try things, and the best way to go is by running a couple of experiments and choosing empirically. Like Model X might be good for a different task, but Model Y or Model Z might be best for yours. You won't know unless you put them up head to head. And then if we talk to CEOs, I think that CEOs are like there's a lot of business leaders that are grossly under their expectations are set way too low. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome, Frank. Like people are just like business leaders are so terrified of asking for results, actual returns, ROI from these significant AI investments, because they get shouted down by all the excitement and all the technology and all the innovation. And I think the blind spot is that AI is just like any other investment that you would make. You should only, you should put in $1 only if you're going to get, a couple of dollars back. And you should think about what is the mechanism that'll get you that return, how will you measure it, and how to tell if your team's on track.
No, it makes total sense. I'm curious how you see things changing going forward. If you think about the second half of this year, it's always tough to predict, but you probably have a sense as you get into the second half of this year and into next year. I think it's safe to assume there's going to be a heck of a lot more development in large language models. And I don't want. I hate to ask you for predictions in the middle of the year. Maybe toward the end, I'll ask you guys and some others in my inner circle for predictions for next year. But is there any particular thing, if you look out forward, let's say a rolling 12 months, that either you see as exciting or something that you'd want to caution people out there on?
There's a story making the rounds last week. Maybe you guys have heard it, that Meta is trying to poach people from OpenAI with sign-on bonuses of $75 to $100 million. We're not talking about annual compensation. We're talking about one-time sign-on bonuses, cash in pocket. So that's kind of interesting. That got my attention, and it tells me that even though the vast majority of teams are shipping AI that's untested with no expectations of earning a return, there is increasing value to doing it right. Like that, it is becoming super clear to the biggest business leaders of our time that AI is much more valuable in the right hands and with the right frameworks than we thought 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. So it's it's a bit of zoom out and zoom in, and I think that it'll continue.
No, interesting. Alon, Oscar, I saw you shaking your head. Did you hear about that rumor? And if so, what do you think?
No, yeah, I sure did, right? Like it made the rounds, and I got texts from pretty much everybody that follows AI saying like, what is going on here? So yeah, it's a shock, right? But it just shows how important it is for organizations today, right? Like it's what everybody's betting on. And again, right, I think for any company to reach any meaningful scale, you need to have a way to actually trust the AI, and that's what I believe what Alon is and his team is doing. It's so important, right? Alon, you were making a really good comment about the old ways of deterministic testing. 1 + 1 is always 2, right? And you invest up front in how to prove the outcomes of your algorithms, and you can gain confidence. AI is amazing, right? But 1 + 1 is not always going to be 2. So you need to have a framework to do that, and to do that on a meaningful scale, you're also going to require unconventional ways of getting there. And that's what I'm seeing from a lot of my clients as well. Is like, oh, this is amazing, but can I trust it, right? How can you tell me with 100% guarantees that nothing wrong is going to happen, right? Like, so you need to get creative. You need to build capabilities to actually do that. And that's why we see all of these organizations investing so heavily on artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
That makes
100%.
sense.
I, sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the pot of gold is in the uncomfortable use case. It's just like anywhere else in life, right? You can go for, a lot of people are building these AI systems that are sort of chat with your documents. It's the simplest thing you could do. It's the most obvious thing you could do. And when you talk to, a lot of these companies, they'll put this little disclaimer at the bottom that says, uh, it might be wrong. That's really what the disclaimer says. Like, yeah, we built this thing, but don't count on it because it might be wrong. And of course, like, it's very comfortable to put that disclaimer in there. Lawyers insist on it because AI is not perfect, and it like destroys user value because the user comes to that system and they realize that like whatever they get out of it, they have to double check. And if they have to double check, they may as well just skip that system and go to the reliable source. So I think like as an industry, we're going to have to graduate past that uncomfortable stage, and we're going to have to figure out how to actually put our money where our mouth is and actually put our credibility on the line behind these systems and make them good enough so that that disclaimer comes off.
No, super. Alon, one more question specifically about RagMetrics, and then I'm going to ask each of you, with the little bit of time we have remaining, is just parting advice for those listening and watching from where you sit, right? So, Alon, as you know, I'm involved in a few things, and some startups, you're out there with something new, and maybe if you're really good or lucky, people embrace it right away. More often than not, some people get it, some people don't, and we all have to power through that. And there are many, a handful at least, of founders on this call as well. But when you speak to people, are the most common objections for those that don't get it? Is it that no, this is not important as you say, Alon? Stop trying to sell us. Or is it, oh, we have some guys on the third floor that do that? Or is it, oh, we've developed a little thing, a little homegrown thing, and we push the button and that fixes it? Like, what are the most? I see you smiling. I can't tell if that's joy or pain or both.
No, it's actually like it's super simple, Frank. People just say, it pretty much works. It's
Okay.
that simple. It's a qualitative judgment that it pretty much works. They don't want to look too closely. They don't want to measure it. And maybe for their use case, it pretty much does. And I think that's fine. We are trying to help people where pretty much is not enough.
Right, super. And my sense is, depending on the application, the use case, and also the industry, where there may be a greater significance to how to quality and accuracy. That's my sense as well. So while I'm with you, Alon, I'll start with you. What is your parting advice for those here? I see one or two questions. I'll get to it. What is your parting advice to those here listening? And it kind of, they're in the game. They're doing something with AI, or they're about to.
I would say my parting advice is insist on numbers. I agree with Sam's advice of go for it. For sure, go for it. But just because you're working with text or video or images does not mean that you can give up all your business training and all the, everything that you've learned. And, so insist on numbers.
No, super. That's a great point. Oscar, I want to leverage your broad expertise and the advisory work that you do. A question came in from Alex around specifically around impact in the finance sector, the Fintech sector. What impact, or where do you see kind of the revolution playing out there? Do you have any experience there that you could talk to?
Well, I mean, I have a very, very personal view, and Alon, maybe you can chip in as well, right? But I think that hyper-personalization is going to be a topic, right? Like being able to have the technology really learn what is important to me, right? And being able to advise me on what to do next, right? It's going to be important. Like I was saying at the beginning, we are drowned in data, and being able to remove the noise it's very important, right? And having technology that can understand me and what is relevant to me, it's not just only going to be beneficial for me personally, but it's also going to benefit companies because they're going to understand, hey, this is what's most important for Alon, right? Like, and by understanding what is important to him, I can provide services that are going to improve his quality of life, right? And I think that applies for fintech, and that is going to apply for everybody. But in the way of fintech, I get targeted by multiple companies, and 98% of the stuff that they offer me is nonsense, right? It's not relevant for me. And the 2%, right, it's kind of hard to spot because, I get flooded with a lot of information that I just choose to ignore. So I believe that having a strategy around personalization that I think AI can really help you with is going to be beneficial for both parties, the producer and the consumer. But Alon, I don't know if you have a different view on that.
No, I agree with you, Oscar. I think personalization is definitely going to tick up. Um, I have, I would say, in addition to that, I mean, picture a fintech application, whichever one you use the most. The one I use the most these days is Yahoo Finance, but whichever one you like, right? It's going to have lots of tabs and modules and buttons and dials, and you probably are scratching the surface of what it can do. You're probably using 1%, 2% of it. Well, guess what? Like most capital markets participants are in the same boat. They're using a tiny, tiny fraction of what the software can do, and that's because, frankly, like user interfaces in fintech leave some things to be desired as a whole. So I think what's going to easily happen with GenAI is a much shorter path from the intent of the user to the action of the software, because you'll describe what you want. Either you'll type it in or you'll say it with voice, and the software will figure it out for you. And I think it's going to be an amazing experience.
No, wonderful. If I could add to that, Alex, for your question, which is a great question, I agree with everything that was just mentioned. What I would add to that is, I personally am really big on empathic AI, and what I see is kind of a humanized AI. And we're building something like that with Tranquilla, as some of you know. I think it's going to reinvent the customer experience, employee experience, things along those lines, where people feel like less of, as Alon mentioned, less maybe frustration of interacting with technology. You're going to be dealing more and more with something human-like. And it's not only going to have empathy, but it's also going to have the knowledge. I like to say AI always had a brain, now it has a heart. So you're going to be interacting with your own personalized agent, whatever they call it, a concierge or a VIP or whatever they want to call it, a frequent flyer or whatever, and they're going to know your stuff. You're going to have your own personal liaison, if you will, to that organization. And it's going to make for a greater life. It's going to be conversational, be no keyboard unless you want it. And it's going to have memory, and it's going to have a really, that to me is really, really exciting, if you will. But I'm not here to plug that, Ben. But thank you for that. What I want to say is we're just about running out of time, and the audience here, although fairly quiet and shy, maybe multitasking, it's beyond. I expected 20, we went to 40, and it went over 70. So the more you guys keep talking, the more people show up. I guess the word's getting out. But thank you so much. And for those here in the audience, if do yourself a favor, connect on LinkedIn with Oscar and Alon. These are two sharp guys. Whether you do business with them or not is up to you. But Alon, happy to plug what you're doing with RagMetrics. You're a fresh new player, and to know you guys is to love you guys. You have some really cool stuff. You have a great team. And anything that's built from the practitioner standpoint, to me, it's real. It's almost validated as you're building it, right? And Oscar, my friend, you're a trusted go-to guy. I appreciate it. I know everybody wants to speak to you, so it may be tough to get to you, but keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate you being here for us and for our network here today.
Thank you, Frank. It was exciting.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, all. Take care now.
Thank you all.
Bye, guys.